There's something about that intro that sounds too young and restless for me. Is that just me?
A little bit, a little
It
bit.
sounds like some like late '90s like soap opera that still exists. Remember soap operas? Remember when those were a thing?
Yeah,
And people,
They're still a thing. I mean, they're still running.
I
So
mean, there's only like what, like
online.
three, maybe four now.
Well, there are a couple of online, and I do know that Nathan Fillion started out on a soap. So there you go.
I don't know what that is. No. Yeah, but guys, we are here for episode 36 of the Monday Night Movie Club, and we're here to review the latest episode of the longest running soap opera in cinematic history. It is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We're going to talk about the movie. We're also going to talk about a little bit of the box office regarding this movie as well. But before we get started here, I see that our first comment here is from Spencer. So, Spencer, I know you're listening. With no context of the previous conversation we had before we went live, Spencer, have you ever played poker before? Just answer the question in the chat below, and we'll get back to you here in a second. Duke Nukem is joining us here. He says, hello, bitches. So he's joining us here tonight. Yeah, this is a family stream, so you can't be talking like that here on the family stream. Alex versus Evil is joining us here tonight. Oh, God, I don't even want to get into that. General Hospital is still going on. And Spencer says, yes, he has played poker. So everything I said before the stream was 100% right. I am completely validated. And we're not going to tell you what we talked about on the stream, but you can know that it was very, very racist. So that's all we can tell
Yeah. Well, I guess now that I found out that Mexicans are also white supremacists, I guess it kind of works.
There you go. Hardcore Nazis. I was thinking to myself, okay, now maybe if he was from Argentina, I would believe that he was a white supremacist. But I mean, I don't know. Mexico, maybe that's the same way.
All this time, I never knew that I had my little Zig Heils somewhere around here. Just because I watched The Occult History of the Third Reich, suddenly I'm a neo-Nazi.
Racist. So right before we went on live here, we were watching a poker stream. I know on Twitch they have like Poker Go, a couple other streams that are live on Monday night, and essentially we saw like a table, and there had to be at least like 4 or 5 like Asian people at this table. Like there were a lot, mostly female, shockingly, but yeah, there was a lot of Asian people there. And I was saying to myself, look, if you're playing like card games, like 90% of being good at card games is basically being good at math. So if you're good at math, you probably have a good shot at being good at either poker or blackjack until you get caught, counting cards and they kick you out the casino forever. But I mean, it's better than back in the old days when the mob used to take you in the back room and beat the crap out of you. So things have gotten slowly better.
Wasn't there a movie that literally was whitewashed? It was like about a group of
Oh yeah. It was 21, if I'm not
20
mistaken, because Kevin Spacey was in the
Kevin
movie.
Spacey, yeah.
Yes,
And
yes.
when they were trying to make, what was that guy's name? Jim Sturgis. Remember Across the Universe?
Oh yes.
They were trying to make that guy a star, and it just didn't take at all.
Wasn't Kate Bosworth in that movie too, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes. Yep.
Oh God.
But the real story is about Asian Harvard students. Here, for some reason, they were literally race swapped.
I'm fine with that. They
Oh,
have a
yeah.
whole other hemisphere to, cater to, so I'm good with that.
Well, yeah, we took the ability of being able to count cards away from the Asian people. So I mean that's problematic. As that was 2008 that film came out. But yeah, that'll be problematic in today's days. Surprisingly, that movie did pretty well at the box office. It made 160 million on a $35 million budget. So.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't move forward with that one, but that was also back in the days, like in the mid to late 2000s, where like I said, poker had a big craze, a big renaissance there. You saw it on like ESPN, the World Series of Poker. All these celebrities were going out to Vegas so they can try to play, even though they had no idea what the hell they were doing. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Oof.
That's the one where they were escaping from the spaceship, and I literally had the Spaceballs theme playing in my mind as they were all trying to escape in their little space pods, and my mom was wondering why I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, like that dude is like way older than I thought that he would be too. Like he's like 44 now, so time
Oh,
has
wow.
not been kind. That's all I have to say there. So
Nope.
I know this week hasn't really been too strong in like movies, like especially like new releases. Because I mean, look, every time one of these MCU films come out, everyone just decides that they're not going to release nothing for the next couple of weeks. I think that's going to slowly start to change because these movies aren't having quite the box office returns that they were hoping that it did. I guess before we officially talk about the film here, we talk a little bit about the box office. Box office numbers came out yesterday. The initial projections, like about a week or two ago, was that it was going to do 130 domestically. Turns out the real number was 15 million lower than that. It was 115, which is about only 10 million more than Ant-Man 3 did just a few months back domestically. But it did perform much better overseas than Ant-Man 3 did. So it's at 282 million at the moment. It's currently projected to finish somewhere between 525 to 530 worldwide when it's all said and done. But the problem is that you're dealing with a film that cost $50 million more in production than Ant-Man 3 did. So when you balance all that out with its break-even mark right now, you're still looking at a possible $150 million loss when it's all said and done, depending on, they shifting the numbers around a little bit. But that's kind of what you're looking at. And I don't know what like you said. It feels like we're a broken record when it comes to these MCU films, but you definitely have to start addressing the fact that, hey, look, you guys got a problem here with these movies, and now you have all of these production halts due to the writer's strike. Blade has now been shut down for further notice. I believe Daredevil has now shut down as well. A couple other projects they had, not to mention all the ones that they had announced that they suspended. They still haven't given new dates to, so those might not ever come out. Stuff like Echo and Ironheart and Agatha Harkness and all of those shows. So there was a rumor we talked about on Bounding this week that, hey, if this movie doesn't do well, then they might have to blow this whole thing up and start fresh and start anew and figure out what to go forward. Well, we seem to be at that point now. So what do you think they should do with the MCU at this point?
They should throw it in the trash where it belongs. I mean, look, I think that the returns have kind of stopped coming in so strong. Maybe they get a second wind with what's coming up, but I can't see it. I can't see any of these movies exciting audiences or exciting a fan base to sort of keep bringing them back to the movie theater or even care about what's on Disney Plus to try to keep up with it. So I think that that's going to be a problem. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we'll get into it. I always thought that was one of the stronger franchises of the MCU because for whatever you think about Iron Man, Captain America, the Avengers thing, Guardians of the Galaxy had a really strong showing at the box office. Volume 2 had a really strong showing at the box office. They were movies people wanted to see, but it was James Gunn that was hopefully crafting these characters you want to spend time with, you want to go on adventures with. I never felt that way because I'm not a child. Even the first Guardians of the Galaxy was like, oh, I fucking hate this. This is exactly the kind of thing that should not be made or taken seriously, and yet we got 3 of them. So I didn't like any of these movies, but I could at least say, the preceding movies were higher in quality. That's not really true at all here. And I think this movie is going to struggle to make a big dent domestically. Internationally, I mean, it might bring in some money, but I think it's going to struggle to hit 350, 400 domestically. And maybe that's in line with what Ant-Man 3 made, but
domestically.
No?
I mean, the worldwide Ant-Man only made 460 somewhere like that, which means domestically they couldn't possibly have brought 200 million. So yeah, this one's probably set when it's all said and done, maybe about 250 domestically, if they're lucky, and then hopefully the international will offset that. But yeah, they're in a slog here. Rick, I don't know what you need to say at this point. It's like we talked about the production issues with Blade. That whole thing's just a complete another mess at this point. Captain America, I heard the rumors that they're probably going to change the title of that movie before it comes out. That's supposed to be filming right now. I don't know how much faith they have in that film at the moment. We all know your favorite film, The Marvels, has got pushed back again. And then that's it. This is phase 5 what we're witnessing here, and we're off to 2 box office bombs back to back with a third one around the corner, and then the 2024 slot, which is going to get pushed back with the writer's strike. I don't know how you save this thing. Oh, by the way, Jonathan Majors might go to jail too, so there's that.
Well, I guess they'll just have to transfer Kang down to some sort of cell and he'll do all his scenes there.
He's
Um,
gonna be like one of those rappers who like records an album over the payphone.
yeah. Well, with green screen, I'm sure they can do anything. They'll just let him. They'll let him out, maybe, or I don't know. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This would have been the big uh, MCU film of this year. I really don't see how the Marvels is going to be a bigger hit. It might still open at number one, but kind of crunched in between Dune Part Two and the Hunger Games prequel. I don't see it. Even if it opens at number one, I don't see it lasting anywhere that long. I would just argue that let's see what week two. Let's see what the week two results are. It's prob. I mean, I don't. I mean, it might still hold on to number one, but with very little competition. However, we've got what is it? Fast 10 coming up in a
In
couple of
2 weeks.
weeks. Yes, in 2 weeks. Does anyone really think that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to top this massive franchise that is beloved?
Especially internationally. Like I said, the numbers are at least somewhat decent internationally for this film, but Fast X is way bigger internationally than this franchise is. So
Yeah, even if it's gotten more and more ridiculous, it's still really really liked. It has a very strong fan base. Yeah, so I always expected it to open at number one, and I've said this before. I expected Guardians of the Galaxy 3 to open at number one,
yeah.
but it's a soft number one. Let's see week two. I'm curious about week two, and then what happens when Vin Diesel's second film will that top Chris Pratt's second film? Because remember, he was in Super Mario Brothers, and yes, I do want to mention that thing about No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which,
We'll
uh,
get to that part because
yeah.
yeah, we need to talk about the MCU's obsession with the Beastie Boys at this point. 'Cause now it's getting ridiculous. I mean, we mocked this like literally like what 3 weeks ago when we did when the Marvels released their trailer, and we made the thing about Intergalactic even before that came out, and now we got another Beastie Boys song, and yeah, we need to talk about that. Can't
Yeah.
wait for the dumpster fire. No, it's Fast X. Yeah, that's not next week, but I guess the week after we'll be talking about that film. And
I, I will still say that if we have an extra scene at the end where Rita Moreno and Helen Mirren drag race each other, I'll give it an A. I'll call it the best film of the year just for that alone. That would be a selling point for me if they had these two women like who are like what in their 80s and 90s drag race each other. I mean,
I
what
mean,
what could be better than that?
it's a complete clown show. Like at this point, this is all it is. Like all of it's just you have to just be all in on the clown world that is the Fast and Furious franchise if you're going to watch any movie at this point. I mean, there's nothing you can say about it that isn't true. It's like, oh, this movie sucks and the stunts are done. It's like, yeah, like everyone knows that. They still watch it anyway. So it's like, it's almost critic proof at this point. Like, you can say it could be the dumbest movie you've ever seen in your entire life. It's still probably going to make $1 billion when it comes out.
Yeah, so look, it's time to close up. It's time to put the sunset on the MCU with Jonathan Majors probably out of the picture, with all their movies and TV shows delayed because of the strike, and with this one not hitting the mark that it was expected to, and the Marvels about to about to challenge House Atreides. I don't see how this franchise can keep going. And honestly, I don't think people are that interested anymore. I think really once everyone came back from the snap, the blip, the spark, the whatever, that was pretty much it for them. And people like me who have no vested interest in this franchise, they checked out. They don't really care, but they want to keep it going and expand it. And we'll talk about an element in this movie that was introduced in the TV show, but you wouldn't know it if you hadn't seen the TV show.
Yeah. So otherwise, who cares?
Yes, pretty much. Who cares? Well, I know there's one person who cares. I know one person who cares and who apparently still hates all of us. I don't know why. I can
Yeah.
understand. I can
Maybe
understand.
because we were right. We tried to tell them like 5 years ago that we were right. Could that have anything to do with it?
Cherish
By
the
the
thought.
way, look, I need to throw Orange Hat under the bus here for a second because, like, so if you don't know Orange Hat, on his Sunday night he does like a I guess discussion stream on like
Yeah.
the MCU film. So the last few nights, like I think last night they were doing the first Captain America, then we
Yeah.
were on the Thor film. I don't know how long they went last night. I think they may have went like 3.5 hours. I can't imagine say if we were reviewing this movie, it's like, guys, I need you to be on the show for 3.5 hours to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. Like nobody would be like, no, we're not gonna do that like anymore. It's like you got to condense that, bro. Like I don't know who wants to. Your put it this way, your discussion of the film is almost twice the length of the actual movie, which is usually never a good thing.
Well, when I did the first, when I did it with the Thor,
Hmm.
I did not realize that it was going to be almost a scene by scene analysis.
Breakdown of the
Yes,
Oh
film.
my
yes,
god.
a
Yeah.
scene by
Oh
scene.
my god.
Yeah,
I'm
Not only
sorry.
that, no, hold on, before you go off. Not only that, but a scene by scene analysis by Orange Hat and C.S. Johnson, who love to talk. So you can only imagine how long that whole thing went. Like I got to like 2 hours in. It's like, look, I'm supposed to be on like another stream in like 5 minutes, so I might have to
well,
bow
no,
out here.
I have a reputation of enjoying a little bit of verbiage myself,
Mhm.
but because I had not seen that movie since it came out,
Yeah.
I had barely a functioning memory of it, and I'm asked to ask, I'm asked, what do I think of this particular scene, and I have to keep saying I don't quite remember it. The few things that I remember were more things that puzzled me. Like I just really, I did literally ask, was that Jeremy Renner? What's he doing here? I did ask that because I had no idea who this character was. I just was puzzled by a lot of this. So I did the best I could. My apologies to Orange Hat, someone that I do like, but I did not really perhaps fully understand how much analysis is. And I'm not going to take anything against him because this is something that he enjoys. This is something that he loves and is passionate about. I
Hmm.
respect that. I remember when I did my film class, we also talked about breaking scenes down. I don't think we broke down every scene in Seven Samurai because that would have taken like 2 or 3 weeks.
6 hours, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Double the runtime.
yeah. But it's not something that I will revisit unless I know way ahead of time and see it recently. But well, I don't criticize his passion, but I'm perplexed as to how you analyze every single scene in this movie. And I
I
tried
can
to
only
watch.
imagine how bad the end game one is going to be because end game was like 3 hours long in and of itself. So that's going to be like
They're, but
5 hours straight.
are they going to analyze every character that disappears and what the reaction was to it? Because my reaction was like, they're coming back. Why are you crying?
Yeah, well, that was my reaction with Infinity War, which is why I gave when I first saw Infinity War, I gave it a 3 out of 5, and people were like absolutely livid with me. It's like, how can you possibly give that film? Like, first of all, why are you guys crying? Why is everyone in the theater crying that Spider Man disappears? They're literally filming the next Spider Man movie right now. You know he's coming back. Like, why are we falling for these tricks? You don't think they're gonna bring back everyone else? They just disappeared at the end of that movie.
But you have to also remember that someone else who is on those analysis
Mm-hmm.
did consider Endgame one of the greatest films ever made. So of course they're going to love this. They love
And
analyzing.
he was there for the whole 3 hours and 15 minutes to the surprise of absolutely nobody.
I tried to watch it, and Orange, this is no slam on you. I tried to watch it, but I'm sorry.
I'm not nearly autistic enough to be on this show.
I'm not that invested in the MCU. I barely remember any of it. Like that's the problem I had with No Way Home. One of them is, and Mysterio is saying, "Well, you were screwed by Tony Stark, and you were screwed by Tony Stark." I'm going. I have no idea who any of these people are. How am I supposed to remember minor characters that were in like 7 movies 5 years ago or 5 movies 7 years ago? I can't keep up. That's why I keep arguing. You need to have in the beginning a little section that says previously on the Avengers, so you could kind of catch up with all
They
of
do it
this.
with Dragon Ball Z. How come they can't do it with the Avengers?
Look, I mean, that's one of the plus about going to the Alamo, because there, at a half hour before the movie starts, they give you a pre-show and they explain it. Although in this one, they had fun with it because they said, previously on Guardians of the Galaxy, according to Rocket, according to Star Lord, according to Gamora, I mean, they went through every character, but it was more in tongue in cheek. Uh, and that's how I found out some things about some things in the movie that were not explained, but were explained in the holiday special. Which
Yeah.
again, I'm not that vested in this to watch the
You have to
holiday
watch.
special.
You have to watch the Disney Plus show. This is what they've set up now too. You have to watch the Disney Plus show in order to understand where we are with these films. They've been doing this ever since at least what the WandaVision. So that we're going back to like Doctor Strange 2, which was last year. So now you have to watch the Disney Plus show to understand the context of where we at here, because you wouldn't have known that Star Lord and the alien chick were sisters unless you watched the
Mantis.
yeah Mantis the Disney Plus special. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The only reason I found out was because of the pre-show. And it's here, and I know we'll talk about it later. It was such a throwaway line. If I hadn't seen it, I would have. It might have even gone over my head. I would have been a little perplexed.
Yeah.
But that's a
Well,
problem. That's a problem with a lot of these films.
Before we get started here, I want to harp on just one more thing, and that is the MTV movie, and I guess they're called the Movie and TV Awards now. It used to be just the MTV Movie Awards, but now that wasn't inclusive enough, so now we're including TV into this as well. And when I saw the results of this show, because I think it was like the Discussing Film account that apparently has some of you guys blocked, was posting the results from that. And I was thinking to myself, wow, we have reached a peak level of profound mental retardation. Because first thing that I saw on here was Scream 6 won Best Picture. Scream 6. Here's what the nominees for Best Picture, by the way: Avatar 2, Black Panther 2, Elvis, Nope, Smile, and Top Gun Maverick. Scream 6 got the award for Best Movie this year. And I was like, oh, okay, we're all officially dumb now. By the way, Best Show, Last of Us. Best Performance, Tom Cruise. Jenny Ortega won for Wednesday, so I'm just assuming that a whole bunch of like teenage Jenny Ortega fans or Jenna Ortega fans voted for this whole thing. Adam Sandler won for A Murder Mystery 2, so there's one. Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us. Elizabeth Olsen for Doctor Strange 2.
Oh, that's a terrible choice.
Best fight goes to Courtney Cox versus Ghostface in
Oh my
Scream
fucking God,
6.
dude.
It's like like if you don't laugh, you'll cry. This is the problem, right?
Listen, I used to watch this show almost religiously as like a preteen and a teenager.
Yeah.
Because they would do funny skits before. In fact, the 2003 MTV Movie Awards, they have a Matrix Reloaded one that I still quote to this day because Will Ferrell's in it. And it's pretty funny, but like it used to be worth watching. And even the movies they awarded were frankly more adult. All of these options are like for teenagers or younger, you know what I mean? And when I was a teenager, it's like things like that challenged me just to seek out other things that weren't necessarily in my sandbox. So
stupid.
I lament it. What's happened to it? Like every other award show that's turned to shit, but it is what it is at this point.
Oh, by the way, just to go back in time to that 2003 one, the movie that won Best Picture in 2003 was The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. So slightly more acceptable Best Picture. Now it just seems like they've just let their absolutely dumbed down preteen audience vote on this stuff, and it shows like brutally. Like I think they gave the Kardashians Best Reality Show, and like when Selena Gomez won Best Music Doc, like what? Oh, okay.
This is the reason we need to repeal the constitutional amendment that gave 18-year-olds the right to vote and move it to 21. And I mean the people who are actually advocating to lower the voting age to 16, no, that's an even worse idea.
So that was my little side rant about that whole act.
But if I could just comment real quick on the whole frame by frame review of
Oh,
the movie? Look, I can appreciate being enamored with something, being obsessed with something, being a big fan of something, because I remember being a kid and growing and really wanting to engage. I even, as I said, I bought the Infinity Saga, but like this is one of the points a movie critic made years ago was that all of this like nerd culture, like comic book minutia, just like layers and encyclopedias of information, not necessarily storytelling, but just information, things you have to remember, things you carry with you through the entire universe, through comic book after comic book, volume after volume, and it's like it doesn't add up in a satisfying way in the cinematic experience in watching a movie. Okay, like I think you can have very basic heroism on display, and that's fine. And like some of the MC movies are good for what they are, but largely it's like I don't care enough to invest that amount of time in basically children's characters. So that's all. And like you said, I watched Dragon Ball Z growing up. I like many of the same things you guys still like. I decided at a certain point I wanted to invest in things that were more complex, morally, or
It's
things
called
that challenge
growing
me.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, this is not a slam on Orange Hat. I like him. I respect him. And again, this is his passion. I just don't think I could invest that much time. And I'll be honest, any what do we call them, Easter eggs that pop up in this franchise, I wouldn't know. There are a lot of things that I don't know. I'm just someone who was never involved in comic books or comic book movies, so I've enjoyed them. But now, as we're going on, 20 years of this, it's a little too much.
16, I think. But
Yes. I mean, I could understand. I mean, I think, was it Roger Ebert might have had a frame by frame, well, not a frame by frame analysis, but kind of a scene by scene analysis of something like Psycho or Vertigo. But I
Yeah.
don't know if, God help them when they get to Thor: The Dark World. I mean, that is just. I mean, I really don't know any MCU fan that actually likes that particular movie. But then again, I'm not one to judge.
Yeah, well, I watched a lot of shit that wasn't for me, like RoboCop and fucking Total Recall and
Ginny Jones.
Blade Runner. Blade Runner was a childhood movie for me. Okay, Starship Troopers. I mean, there's lots of stuff I shouldn't have seen that I saw. Goodfellas.
The most non child thing that I saw as a child was Basic Instinct, but that was kind of by accident because my mom loved Michael Douglas and she did not know what that movie was about. She just knew Michael Douglas was in it, so she took me and I saw her change like 50 Shades of Red and all kinds of red, and I was just perplexed as to what was going on.
You know the connection there between me and you, right?
What is it?
Paul Verhoeven. He directed Basic Instinct. He directed Starship Troopers, RoboCop, Total Recall.
I did show. Well, I did show. No, he didn't. Did he do Showgirls as well?
Yes.
Yes,
he did.
I showed my Democratic Socialist friend that one, and that was all about Eve on a G-string in a G-string.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, I got one movie that'll up all you guys. Remember the movie called The Crying Game?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I will stand by that. It is a very good movie.
Definitely not one for kids.
No, it isn't. Hey, that's the one I actually saw on like the Netflix DVDs that got mailed to you.
Yeah.
That was one of the movies I rented because I didn't see it. So.
No, I think I saw it in theaters with my mom, and she said, well, the girl there, she said she's very pretty, but her neck is very long. So she kind of sensed something was going to happen, and this was recommended by one of my cousins who was who I guess
I mean, looking back on it, especially watching the movie again, it's like, how did you guys not know? Like, it was like, I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, it wasn't like it was that well hidden. I mean,
well, not to mention it's the same actor who played like I forget Stargate because I haven't seen it forever, but the villain, like, it was the same actor.
Yeah, Jay Davison. Jay Davidson, and it was supposed to be a shocker that Jay Davidson was nominated in supporting actor, which I guess would be the big reveal. I guess they were revealing
Oh,
the
okay.
identity. They were
See, I'm
revealing
not even.
the twist. They were
Yeah.
revealing the twist of the movie.
Yeah.
All I could say is that I think that was what I don't think that was the same year as Pulp Fiction.
No, 92 I think was the Crying Game. 94 was Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay, because
Yeah.
again, I tend to think they were the same because my mom had kind of a similar reaction to Pulp Fiction, which all she kept going on was about, my God, John Travolta's so fat. What happened to him? And for the whole movie, that's all I kept hearing about. Like just how John Travolta was beautiful, and now he's just so fat, and he let himself go to waste.
Well, I mean,
So
he's gay. Like, why are you so obsessed with what he looks like, anyways?
no, that's not me. That's my mom. Crying Game. I love when Billy Crystal, when he would do those Oscar songs and the parodies, and I think he did one to the Tender Trap, and it was those eyes, those thighs, surprise! It's the Crying Game. I was laughing. I didn't know the song, but I thought it was hilarious. Yes, I did see. Well, look, my mom went because my cousin recommended Pulp Fiction. My cousin, who I guess was some sort of cineast, and who really liked these. I guess well, both my cousins, how I think about it, had these like avant-garde type films. I guess they didn't realize what kind of viewer my mom was, so they told her, "Go see Pulp Fiction, you'll love it." Yeah, the violent movie where John Travolta's fat. Yeah, that's going to appeal to like Mexican, a middle-aged Mexican woman. Yeah, that's going to be the target audience. She should be watching like Triumph of the Will because all Mexicans are now white supremacists. But all I can
Well,
tell
this
you
is
that
a good listen. This is a good segue for Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking Too, because there's talking animals, and John Travolta was in those movies. Did your mom not see him fat in Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking Too? Just curious.
I think she probably was more in love with the cute kids than she
Okay.
was about John Travolta. Uh, although,
The word
Talking
choosing
animals get the
complete
star
denial.
off.
well, not
All right,
not
well,
always, not
well,
always. Wait until Little Mermaid, and you'll change your tune.
Oh God.
Nonstop.
Well, let's segue into PETA's #1 film of 2023, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, in case you guys haven't been following, let's give you guys a little quick backstory here. This is Guardians of the Galaxy was a movie that came out 2014 that was Marvel's first real risk in the whole MCU because it was a bunch of unknown characters like at the time. Like they weren't very popular, but it was like a quirky kind of like mishmash of interesting characters. They rolled with it. While it wasn't a huge box office success, it was successful enough that the movie got such positive reviews that people loved it and they wanted to see a second one. For my money, the first Guardians movie is probably top 3 MCU films of all time out of the 32 that we've seen up to this point. Then we got the second one, which was 3 years after that, and that was the one where they let James Gunn go full James Gunn, and that one was garbage. That one sucked. That was one with like Kurt Russell playing like Ego the Planet, and then there was all just nonsensical stuff. Not only that, but that was the start of when they turned Dave Bautista's character of Drax into just a complete other moron. Because in the first film, it was like, well, he's funny because, he doesn't understand sarcasm. So he's like unironically funny. He's like funny due to circumstance rather than him just being a big dummy. And then the studio was like, oh yeah, that worked so well in the first movie. Let's just make him really dumb so that people can react to his stupidity. So he just became a complete moron throughout the course of 3 films. Then you had the James Gunn stuff that happened where people started bringing up his old tweets about him making some jokes about having sex with kids and stuff like that. Then you had the whole Catch a Predator theme party and the association with sex offenders and all that good stuff. So Disney decided, hey, look, we got to distance ourselves from this guy, so we're going to fire him, quote unquote. I do mean quote unquote because in all honesty, then you can argue that he was probably never really fired to begin with. I think they sat him out for about roughly 6 months until they announced, okay, well, due to the support of the cast, we're gonna bring this guy back, so we're gonna keep moving forward now. So all that really did was delay the release of this film maybe about 2 or 3 years in the context. So it was only about a 3-year delay, but now we're getting Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 after all of the Endgame stuff. And the one thing about this franchise is that it really had, outside of, with the exception of Infinity War, nothing about the Guardians of the Galaxy is really intertwined with anything in the MCU whatsoever. Like, they don't have like other like Avengers or anything like that guest star in their films, so they keep everything focused on this group, which, you know, is, I guess, is a good thing and a bad thing, because yeah, you can tell a more concise story in 3 films, but we don't know what's happened with this group since what, Endgame, which is supposedly like 3-4 years ago. So this is supposed to be the big catch up story. And when we get into the film, we're told right off the gate that Star-Lord is still very emotionally distraught over the death of his girlfriend Gamora, who was killed by Thanos in Infinity War. But for some reason, they brought back an alternate universe version of her in Endgame. So Gamora is there, but it's not his Gamora. So he still has to accept the fact that Gamora is dead. We'll talk about that later on, about I don't even think they needed her in this film to begin with. So they're in the planet Nowhere. They're basically just trying to make the best of where they're at now, and right off the gate, he gets Rocket Raccoon, who is the main focus of this entire movie, gets attacked by Adam Warlock. Right? We don't know why Adam Warlock is attacking him, but he's attacking him, attacking the entire Guardians group. Rocket gets wounded during the fight. He suffers an injury. They try to revive him, but they say like they can't revive him because he has some kind of device on his heart, which is like a kill switch, which means that they can't, help whatever his condition is until they get it out. But they don't know anything about Rocket's past, because in the course of the 9 years in continuity that they've been a team, Rocket has told absolutely nobody about his past, where he came from, anyone he knew before he knew the Guardians whatsoever. Because if he did, this movie probably wouldn't exist in the first place, because they wouldn't have a plot if he had simply told people that, hey, I was a lab experiment all these years ago, and by the way, I have a kill switch in my heart. So maybe that's something that you guys want to think about, just in case things go wrong in the future. But we fast forward a little bit more, and then we have this villain called the High Evolutionary. He's basically a villain who views himself as God. He wants to, quote unquote, perfect human design, which you get a lot of transhumanism for you conspiracy theories out there. He wants to perfect human design by making these monstrosities and these abominations and creating his own worlds. And that's pretty much the setup of the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie. John Delarose, who has the chat link, by the way, he can come here and shield this film all he wants to. If, he's too big of a pussy to actually do it. But let's talk about just the setup of this film. I thought the first 15-20 minutes of this film is probably the best opening sequence of the movie, best sequence that they had in the movie. I think they set things up pretty strongly. I think it just went downhill afterwards, especially when we go to like multiple characters here. Adam Warlock is a character that, the hardcore comic book fans know. They know he has a very strong tie to Thanos, which is why it was puzzling to people why they were bringing him out after they've already taken Thanos out of the equation altogether. But they did tease him, like, what was it, like 5 years ago? They never did anything with him, so now they're finally giving him Will Porter, I believe his name is the guy who's acting the character. I think he's a complete ponce, but I mean, I think the way that they portrayed this character didn't do him any favors here. So I guess we'll start off with the opening. What did you guys think of the first act here of Guardians of the Galaxy? You think they did a good job? I'll start with Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming in kind of cold on this because I haven't seen. I'm trying to remember if I even watched Volume 2. It might have been a straight skip, and then all of the sort of backstory information about like Gamora not being the real Gamora, it being an alternate universe one. The screen, like whenever they're going to a new location, it's like, okay, I don't know where any of this shit is. It's just sort of information coming at me.
It's just space. They can just make up a planet. It doesn't have to be legitimate.
I thought it was okay, but some of like the early, animal, like, because like the first scene is like, or where the movie starts is with the raccoon and him remembering like his origin, or like the place that he was in, caged with other animals or whatever, and was like, okay, I get it. I mean, it's giving his brother or whatever, James Gunn's brother, an opportunity, I guess. And I'm like, okay, it's a setup. Like, let's see where it goes from here. But I didn't exactly have a high bar in terms of this movie starting out, but you get the message early on that it's going to be Rocket's movie.
Yeah, and it is Rocket's movie throughout the entire course. He is the main catalyst of the film, even though I guess him as the character himself is not in it as much as you would think, because whenever you see him, it's mostly flashbacks to the past. But Rick, what did you think of the opening sequence of this movie?
Well, first, I'm trying to remember what the song was because I'm going. That's a cover version.
Oh, Creep. Oh, I
Creep.
fucking hated it. I fucking hated it. I was like, oh, you're gonna use Radiohead's literally the song they did to make a commercial hit. You're gonna use them literally their worst fucking song. You fucking hacks. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wait till we get to the Beastie Boys. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going. Yeah, this is a cover, and I guess we're supposed to feel bad for Rocket as he goes through this. Then I started getting kind of lost in some details, like that Soviet cosmonaut dog that I had no idea who that was, what that was. And I'm
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, look, the Soviet Union fell like what, 30, 40 years ago?
hmm
92, 02, 12, 22, like about 30 years ago. That dog would be long dead. I don't know how it's still going around there with Latka or
It's a
Laika.
Cosmo dog.
The Cosmo dog, yes. And why is that dog there? Who is this person who's taunting them with the little arrow flying about? Why is everyone so drunk and so miserable? Then that bit um, when Warlock, which again I don't know who these people are. I had to, I found out later during the movie what the character's name, and I kept calling him Adam. I had no idea that it was Warlock, or I guess it's Adam Warlock, what have you. It was like, well, that was not too bad because it was just kind of a big battle, and he's taking down all of these people until Nebula stabs him, and then like, oh, and then he manages to fly off. I mean, that didn't kill him. I would have expected that to kill him pretty quickly, but I
Yeah.
guess not. So I was a little perplexed by all of that. But I still got more hung up on the dog thing. As for Rocket, this reminds me of those movies, and I know I can't really remember the names right now, but there have been movies where the character is injured, and then you have to save him. I mean, this is not
I mean,
not
it's a
quite.
trope. A character gets
Yeah,
hurt early on, and they
yeah,
need some magical BS device to save them. So
yeah.
the journey becomes about the device that they need.
It's not exactly Fantastic Voyage because they don't go inside of him, but that would have been more interesting if they had to go inside of him like they did in Fantastic Voyage. But I mean, that
So I guess we can start off here. My first problem with this movie is that for a movie, keep in mind it's 2.5 hours long. This is not a short movie, so you're gonna feel the runtime watching this. But the reason why it's so long is because there's so many characters that just don't need to be in this film. Adam Warlock, like I said, a lot of people say that why are you introducing him now? Thanos is gone. He really doesn't have much of a purpose outside of that. So you're introducing a character that's already a lame duck to begin with. They do a good job establishing him early on. You think that he's going to be, a threat for the rest of the movie, but outside of that opening like 10-minute sequence, he immediately gets turned into just a complete another joke. Like he faces off with the higher evolutionary. He bitches him out like in Jurassic fashion in like 2 minutes, and then throughout the course of the film, he's basically portrayed as like a giant idiot, like someone who's so stupid. It's like, how is this guy even like a functioning superhero? I mean, not even a hero, but a functioning being at this point. Like they just portray him as a complete another dumbass throughout the course of the film, to the point where it's like, look, dude, you really don't need to be in this movie at all. And for the sake of that end credit scene, we'll talk about later, but we'll get to that in a second. The whole thing with the Cosmo dog. Look, if you watch any James Gunn movie, James Gunn has the tendency to take one joke and he will run that joke into the ground throughout the course of the film. He did this. Well, if you guys remember the Suicide Squad movie that came out a couple of years ago, the joke about the guy and his mom, and that like everywhere he looked, he always like saw his mom, and they kept running that joke over and over again. So the joke in this film is that James Gunn's brother, who I don't remember the character's name that he plays, but he's arguing with the Cosmo dog, and at one point he calls her a bad dog. So she's literally throughout the course of the entire film saying, take it back, take it back, I'm not a bad dog. And he's like, no, you are a bad dog. And like it just keeps coming back over and over again, and it gets to the point where even the characters in the scene are like, can you get over this already? But it's like, just because you acknowledge that it's an annoying bit doesn't make it less of an annoying bit because you acknowledge it. That's the other thing that bothers me. And then we'll get to the character of Gamora, because like I said, this is not the same Gamora from the first two movies. This is a Gamora who they brought in from Endgame. They brought her from another universe, so this is a Gamora that never met Star-Lord, never fell in love with Star-Lord. It's a completely different character altogether. And she's in the film to remind Peter that the real Gamora is gone and that he needs to like move on or whatnot. But it's like, you didn't need to have her in the film for her to learn that message. I mean, at the opening scene, he's literally getting drunk at a bar, dealing with the grief that his girlfriend is gone. So it's like, then you bring her back to constantly remind him. It's like, yeah, she's here, but she's still gone. It's like, you could have had that same message by not having her in the film at all. But I guess they felt guilty by not having Zoe Saldana in the final Guardians movie. So they had to find some kind of way to write her back into the screen, even though she has no purpose in this thing whatsoever here. So what do you think about some of the useless characters in this movie, Rob?
Well, it's just weird. It's like you're trying to torture people who like Star-Lord, or like Star-Lord himself. And it's like, hey, we're going to remind you every second that, you're still in pain, even though like when you lose somebody you love, that's there no matter what. And so it's just like, oh, hey, we're torturing Star-Lord so he can be a sad sack for most of this movie. And so I think it's a continuation of kind of kicking the hero when he's down, even though I don't know how much Peter Quill is like a necessarily a heroic character to start with in terms of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I honestly do not remember it at all. So I think some of those choices are strange, and it's like, maybe it's fan service. Maybe it's like, oh, hey, you get to see the gang back together one more time before we disband it and make the leader somebody else. Oops, I ruined it. So it's just like, I don't know why the creative choices, come out like this, but it seems like it's half thought out and like, oh, hey, we have a turd sandwich that we have to smush between two pieces of bread. And, we're going to try to throw a lot of shit at the wall and hope that people don't notice.
Well, there were a lot of characters. I mean, really, if you think about through the course of the film, Warlock is pretty pointless. And again, it almost became a running competition who would be dumber, Warlock or Drax. Like, both of them are pretty moronic. I guess Gamora's there to give Star-Lord something to pine after. But, I mean, Warlock's mom, I'm perplexed as to why she's there. I know we'll get into it later on. Nathan Fillion, that whole bit was just pointless. I don't get why any of these. I mean, what did the Cosmo dog Leica do, or whatever her name is? What did she do? Really,
the way they tried to make her useful throughout the entire film was towards the end. She has to keep the I guess the planet that was about to explode and like the ship that they were on from connecting so that they can bring people over from one side to another. And that's the only use that she has throughout the entire movie, outside the joke they run into the ground throughout the course of the entire film.
And that's something that happened in the second Guardians. Remember, was it Taserface or whatever, where it kept being repeated over and over and over and over. Look, the first time was fine,
but he does that in like all of James Gunn's movie. He takes one joke and then just runs it down throughout the course of the entire film. He does that with every single film. So that's like one of his like shticks, one of his things that he just does in his movies.
And again, this is what happens when you give someone free reign and you don't pull them back. There should, Kevin Feige, who should apparently get an honorary Oscar for lifetime achievement for all he's done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yes, somebody did propose this. I think he should have said, you know what, maybe we'll let you have it twice, but you don't need those whole scenes. We did find that poker scene funny, but we'll mention it later on as to why we thought it was funny, if I remember.
Now that I'm rethinking about it, it's just making me more irritated. But we'll save that for a time here. Yeah. I wanted to talk about, like I said, something that Rob mentioned, like the kind of the breakdown of these characters. And it's funny because, like I said, this whole thing started with Star Lord being the central character. He is the leader of this bunch, and going into it, you figured that the emotional weight of the story will revolve around him because he's the one that's dealing with the loss of his girlfriend, right? But right from the jump, they tell you right away that this is Rocket's movie. Like Star Lord is basically relegated to a side character in his own film, and then when you get later on to it, I mean, like I said, we're 3 movies in, we're still treating him like dirt throughout the entire thing. Like Gamora's like lambasting him throughout the entire movie. Even like the other characters that are in the film, it's like, yeah, I just think you're just an ignorant douchebag. So it's like throughout the course of the film, like Chris Pratt, they're just like giving it to him. It's like character wise, right? And then you have, like I said, the whole thing with Drax, where they just making him dumber and dumber as the film goes on. It even got to the point where they just straight up called him stupid in the film, and I was like, for someone who remembers Guardians 1 and remember how this whole thing started, it almost seems like they're trying to deconstruct what they started in the first film. Because if you watch the first movie, like nothing about that first movie to me was felt in this third film whatsoever. It just goes to show you just how far they stretched this whole story out between the first film and the second film. Was there anything about the character specifically that you noticed that bothered you outside of that?
I mean, I didn't notice a whole lot just because there wasn't a whole lot there for me because
Yeah.
I'm not super invested in this series. Drax has that moment of not understanding, uh, not a metaphor. I forget what they called it, but where he's trying to explain to Star Lord that it's going to be okay, and the metaphor about the pond and the ripples and all and whatever, and then he fucks it up by talking about Gamora, and it's just like, okay, I mean, things like that, which are just like, okay, we just wasted 2 minutes to make this character look like a fucking idiot,
Yeah.
and I get it, it's for laughs, it's to add some levity to the situation, to the movie, but it was just like the whole movie felt so try hard, so like the musical selections, the banter between the supposedly close, team, it felt lazy, it felt like they didn't give a shit. Like they basically just had to take this turd casserole out of the oven before it expired, and it was just like, here, please don't notice how bad it tastes. But again, I had very little expectations. This movie annoyed the shit out of me, just with its kind of, its lack of personality, frankly.
Well, I was spending a good amount of my time at a certain point wondering what's Sylvester Stallone doing here. I don't remember him in the
Well, I
past
mean,
movies.
in the
Yeah,
second movie, he had a
I,
pretty much a glorified cameo in that one, and here he has once again another glorified cameo. He's there for like maybe 2 scenes in
two
total, but
scenes.
he's not even
yeah,
in the movie for like a total of like 1 minute. So
Yes, so I spent my time just wondering about a lot of people popping up. With the characters, I think the one that was the worst for me was Warlock because I mean, the beginning he comes in, he's fighting and he's killing and he's destroying. I mean, he manages to rip Groot's head off and have him kind of walk in this little
yeah,
spider-like thing. But then after that, he turns into a total moron, an absolute blithering idiot. When he argues with his mom, when he's trying to extract information from one of the raiders or what have you, ravagers, whatever, and burns him to a crisp. It's like, oh, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I'm going, how stupid can you be? Really? Do you have to make your character stupid when you're trying? He's supposed to be a villain or the henchman. He's supposed to
yeah,
be the high execute or the high whatever the thing is called, the
high
high
evolutionary or some
whatever.
nonsense like.
Yeah, the yeah, the Bond villain. That's what I kept calling him. He was a Bond villain because he was going to not take over the world, but he had the same idea as Drax. Curiously enough, Drax from Moonraker. Without, and I know you're doing a Bond retrospective, Rob. This was Drax from. There's a character named Drax, Sir Hugo Drax from Moonraker, and he was going to create kind of his super race of beings up in outer space. And I'm thinking, this is the same. This is a Bond villain type plan, but for the henchman is just such a total idiot. And I kept wondering, why are you here? Why are you here? for the rest of the movie, and I know why he's there at the very end, but it seems kind of pointless to put him in there because you don't. He serves no purpose. There were just so many scenes that served no purpose, just made the movie feel even longer. But I think the worst one was, and I know we'll get to it eventually. Nathan Fillion. Uh, that whole sequence, that whole scene
Mm.
was pointless. He was pointless. I think he's just there because there are certain sci-fi fans who love him from Firefly and Serenity. But
Like
why was he
James
there?
Gunn.
Right.
I guess
No,
why?
Joss Whedon, I think. But
Well, yeah, that was Joss Whedon. But or I guess I don't care. But why? Why
I
was
don't
he?
care.
Why was he there? His character could have been completely cut. That whole sequence could have been completely cut, and it would not have affected the story. As this Michelin Men warrior outfit, which
Yeah.
and
Well, this is the problem. Like I said, you don't really have a strong story here. You have basically a justification of why they needed to wrap this up because the whole story of this film is based on the fact that, like I said, Rocket has just told absolutely no one over the course of almost a decade about his background. Because if they had known that there was something like wrong with him, they could have like fixed it, and there would have been absolutely no reason to go find a warlock or go to this biodegradable planet and all this other stuff. So it's like the whole plot is based on the fact that Rocket has never had a conversation with his friends in the course of 10 years. That's the setup of this entire movie.
not just that, but he's apparently never been injured enough to run the risk of him dying.
Yeah.
So I guess they never had any other adventures where Rocket's life was that seriously in danger.
Speaking of dying, remind me to talk about that before when we get to the end of that review because that's something else that really bothered me about this film. But what did you guys think about the effects of this film? Because this movie cost $50 million more than Ant-Man 3 did, which means that pretty much the entire film is all blue screen. And you can tell from the scenes like it's all blue screen. None of this stuff is there. They probably built like the bare minimum of actual sets in this movie. And there's times where it does look good, and there's times where it just looks kind of rough around the edges. So, I mean, and we talked about this too. It's like, I don't understand how a movie like Top Gun Maverick, for instance, could only cost $170 million. And they're doing like real stunts with like real like aircraft, stuff like this. And somehow this movie costs almost $100 million more, and it's all behind a blue screen. Like, where is this money going? Like, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I think that compared to at least the most recent MCU stuff, I think it looks better, but it still looks like crap. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think that James Gunn being involved in it, hopefully, does bring a higher production quality to the overall product. However, it's still CGI and blue screen, and unless it's done incredibly well, which granted John Wick 4 is a recent example of how you do CGI well. And I just never felt like, oh, hey, he's built a legitimate world here. He's built a universe for these characters to come alive in. I never feel like that. It's just this airless MCU garbage. But I will say it looks better than the average MCU movie does. From time to time, some of those outer space vistas.
That's what is that damning with faint praise. I'll say that when they get to the biological planet or the super prison that's made out of living tissue, that looked really bad to me when they're about to drill into the planet and they're having that conversation, which I think really captures what one of the issues that I had with the movie, where the tonal shift goes from very sincere to having to be really wacky and comedic with those, oh, the buttons. Oh, well, no, blue is for green and green is for yellow and yellow is for blue. I'm going, why do you need this? Just cut that comedy part out. There's no point to having it there. Just have them have their conversation and move on. It would have worked great. But
like I said, it dragged on too long because it would have been funny if it just said, "Hey guys, we can hear you. You're on the wrong channel, right?"
Yep.
And then they mentioned it, and then just moved on with the scene by that. But they had to drag out the comedy bit by, no, see, orange means blue and blue means green. And then it's like, oh my god, like we just, this whole scene you just brought up, this emotional scene, has now come to a screeching halt because you had to have the comedy inserted here. So let me ask you guys this. We've seen James Gunn movies. We've seen Taika Waititi movies. is James Gunn better or worse than Taika Waititi at this point, as far
Okay.
as undercutting drama with comedy?
Okay, I will say this: James Gunn at least has two movies in his back pocket that I at least can defend. One is
Mm-hmm.
Slither. One is Slither, which is basically a remake of I think it was called Shivers
Yeah.
by Cronenberg in the 70s. That it's not bad. It's a pretty good horror movie. And he did this movie called Movie 43. Look it up and find it if you can.
Yeah, I know all about that one.
Big warning though, the comedy is not just juvenile, it is like it takes the juvenile sense of the comedy like up to 12 out of a 10. So just prepare yourselves for like celebrities to say really shocking vile things. So I will hold those up. Taika Waititi has made like he almost makes movies through a childlike lens. Like the 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 Where People movie was dumb. Like
Hunt for
his
the Wilder People. I think.
Thank you. The Wilder People. Yeah, that movie was awful. I'm sorry. It was like so twee and so precious and so childlike that I just wanted to throw up.
Not
And
quite
he's
Wes Anderson there.
no. I mean, Wes Anderson makes me want to vomit too, but it's more about his candy coated, aesthetic. So look, Taika Waititi to me is like he has done nothing good in his filmography. So at least James Gunn has shown flashes of being relatively entertaining.
Well, I know that there are people who absolutely adore Jojo Rabbit, which is a movie that I think you and I absolutely hate. I think every person here hates that movie. You're muted, Jacob.
I was gonna say this real quick. I don't hate the movie entirely. What I hate is that he actually does a very good job at the dramatic elements of that film. The problem is like the same thing with like MCU films. You have to undercut it with comedy, and it doesn't mix well. He does not know how to do that. That's what pisses me off about Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, but well, I mean, the Academy thought otherwise, much to my horror. Um, I think I'm probably going to say that YTD is worse because I really I mean the two Thor movies that he's done I thought they were not good. Love and
Taika
Thunder,
Waititi.
yeah, and was it Ragnarok? I mean,
Yeah.
I was not impressed with either of them. I did not like Jojo Rabbit. I didn't think it was funny. I never saw Hunt for the Wilder People, though I did get the screener. I've not watched it. As for James Gunn, I'm actually not that familiar with his filmography. Every time Rob mentioned Slither, I thought that was like the Sharon Stone movie. I think there's I think
No,
that
that's
was
Silver. That's
Silver.
Silver.
Silver. I thought it was Slither.
Well, I'm probably wrong. Who knows? But the Baldwin, right? She's in that movie with a Baldwin brother or something.
Well, I think she's like in an apartment, and all I know is that UB40's "Can't Help Falling in Love" cover was part of the soundtrack. That's the only point of reference. So I kept thinking that's what you were talking about.
No, you're right. It is Sliver. My bad.
Yeah. So that's so I don't know a lot of his films. I didn't like I hated Volume 2. I loved Volume 1.
Same.
Yeah, I thought I think it made my 10 best of that year. Volume 2 I think it made my 10 worst. I don't like, was it Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, or whatever those films are.
Mhm.
And when I remember the trailer and they said from was it the mad genius of James Gunn or whatever, I'm going, it's not, he's neither. Uh, I'm gonna have to, but I will have to say probably Waititi because I think he's aggravated me
Hey,
more.
what do we always say? Failing upwards, baby. You blew the last two superhero films. How about you take over all of DC? Yeah, there's a smart move. Way to go there. And then Bush had asked this question earlier. Before the movie was Adam Warlock supposed to come out? Well, initially was this movie supposed to come out before Endgame? No, actually, if the whole thing with James Gunn didn't go down, they said that this movie would have came out in 2020, so it still would have come out after Endgame regardless. So, like I said, his inclusion in this entire thing makes even less sense then. So. Yeah, Ragnarok. I mean, like I said, Ragnarok is like the best Thor movie almost by default. Like there's, I mean, the other ones are just so bad. It's like it's definitely more entertaining than the first Thor movie in the Dark World, but I mean, it's not like it's
Oh
a
yeah.
great film by any stretch of the imagination. So
Well, I will say that if you want to see if Ragnarok really is the best Thor movie, you
yeah.
can go back to a 3 hour analysis of the first Thor and see if that holds up in your ideas.
Yeah, I like how
Sorry,
Rob is.
Orange.
I like how Rob is just having like Vietnam flashbacks at the idea of talking about an MCU for 4 hours.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you literally would talk about something that's so devoid of ideas, creativity, insight,
I,
just
I
in
I
general.
I have no knowledge. I have no knowledge of that. But again, you're talking to someone who has seen all the Marvel movies exactly once, and I don't think I've seen any of them since, unless it were for a retrospective. And I'm still toying with the idea of doing an MCU retrospective. But it was a few movies in before I realized that there was an end, like there was a credit scene, an actual end credit scene. I did not know that until 3 or 4 movies in, and that was just by accident because I was just playing it, and then I heard something that was going on. So yes, I'm not that invested in it.
Let me ask you guys about kind of the way that the emotion of this film is pretty much all put on the shoulders of like these animal-like abominations that we see throughout the course of the film. Because I mean, the whole story is about Rocket's upbringing and how he became a talking raccoon with a gun and stuff like that. And essentially, he was an experiment that went right, I guess you can say, with the high evolutionary. He got like super intelligence. He was able to like think on his own. He even figured out a plan, or I guess a flaw in the high evolutionaries plan that even he couldn't figure out, which drove him to no insanity. Because like, how can this raccoon figure it out, but I couldn't, stuff like that. So the most of this film is with Raccoon. He's in like this kind of like dark like cell area with these other animals, like a Wallace slash like wheelchair thing, and there's this like badger and these other like animals are all there. And the film pretty much makes it so that the entire emotional weight of this film are on these characters, right? And look, I get it from look, I understand that there's people out there who are very serious animal lovers. We've talked about how PETA apparently thinks that this is their favorite film of the year as well. But for me, it's like, look, I see these, all I see is just like CGI monstrosities along the screen. And I know you guys really want me to emotionally grip these characters, but I just couldn't do it. Is that just me? Am I just a heartless bastard, Rob?
No. I mean, it's just like it seems like a dumbed down kids movie at that point. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
while I think it's a kids movie, it's not what the Super Mario Brothers movie was that came out a couple weeks ago, which was a little kids movie. So like when
yeah.
you're dealing with talking animals, look, I'm sure you could write it well. But this is not it, And so you're trying to generate an emotional catharsis from talking CGI characters, which, hey, if again, listen, I've bitten my tongue over the past couple weeks not shitting on anime. I'm not an anime fan, okay? But again, you can do it well, right? You can take animation and tell a story that you invest in. There's no investment here. There's no good writing. The characters are shit, and it's this cutesy, sentimentalized, like, are you trying to infantilize your audience? Are you trying to turn them into children again?
I
Because
mean, you can
this is the
argue they've
kind
been
of
doing
thing.
this for like 10 years.
Yeah, but this is the kind of thing we grew up with as kids. It's like you move past it, and it's okay. But it's like this is not anything to take seriously or to it doesn't have any kind of gravitating storytelling capacity. That's the problem, is that we don't care and there's no reason for us to care. That's terrible.
There's some very blatant please cry moments
Oh
throughout
yeah.
this movie.
Oh yes.
No,
Oh
just say
yes.
no and throw popcorn at the screen.
Yes. I will say that first off, those creatures made me think of the first Toy Story when
Yep, with
you had all
Sid.
the little, yeah, and he had all his kind of freakish creations there.
Yeah.
And yes, I know that's what they were going for, to move me emotionally. And You are kind of a heartless bastard, Jacob, but that's separate from what your thoughts on the MCU is.
I guess that's another complaint too. I mean, this guy, the high evolution, whatever his fucking guy's name is, like he's supposed to be like one of the smartest beings like in the universe. So the best you could come up with is a fucking walrus attached to like a pickup truck wheel. Like that's the best that you can do with all your smarts and all of your intelligence. Like you were able to completely restructure your face after getting clawed out in vicious fashion, but somehow like the walrus badger thing is the best thing you can come up with.
Well, it does seem peculiar that you think that your perfect being is going to be a walrus in essentially a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So I was perplexed by that. But yes, I mean, I can understand maybe why. I don't know why you would take a child to see this, because I think they would find those creatures a little frightening. But it's hard because you have that little rabbit or rabbit spider like thing with a very cutesy voice, and at one point saying, "Oh, are we gonna play today?" And in kind of to hit on what Rob was saying, I think some of the audience is already infantilized. Think about it. Some of the audience members are probably in their 30s or 40s, somewhere between your age and my age, and they are still invested in a talking raccoon who's supposed to make them cry. So I think at a certain point they are somewhat infantilized. I mean, these are live action cartoons, and they're still getting weepy about it. You want an anime that will make you cry? Try Grave of the Fireflies. That one will make you weep,
Well,
but that
listen,
one has some ideas behind it.
and I just want to share this with you real quick, Rick. Listen, I watched They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Separate Tables. I saw 3 Burt Lancaster movies that were all very good over the weekend, and
Yeah.
it's just like when you go from that to literally today seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it's like it's like they don't care anymore. It's like they're trying to shovel shit in our fucking face, and I am so fucking sick of it. You know what I mean? Like, I am so tired of them not trying and being like, hey, be happy you get to consume more products. Just get ready for the next product.
Well,
It's so exhausting.
it would be difficult to imagine anyone would invest into making a remake of, let's say, Separate Tables, even though David Niven won an Oscar for that, Best Actor. I would argue that I haven't seen it, but I think it's one of the shortest Best Actor winning performances, because I don't think he's in the film as long as maybe some of the others. I would. I don't know if it's just a general audience that is kind of not wanting a lot, and sometimes I can understand that, because I sometimes just want to sit there, watch it, and watch something, and that's just going to wash over me. But you're asking me to cry over, was it a badger with metal arms, and a walrus who's in basically a wheelchair, and well, I don't know if people do cry. I mean, I didn't hate them. I wasn't like, oh, I'm glad that that walrus is in a wheelchair. But at the same time, if you want me to feel something, why you already have that Star Lord Gamora
You know,
story?
I'm sorry. That reminds me today of seeing that post of Seth Rogen saying his dog died, and I was literally about to make fun of him. Was like, maybe I shouldn't. It was a moment. It was a moment of like, hey, maybe I should not do that, and I didn't. So I was proud of myself for like having some self-awareness there. But yeah,
Fair.
that's what that makes me think
that
of.
the whole thing was called your soul. Your soul
Yeah.
was second guessing your decision. It's like, what?
Man.
Maybe this is a step too far.
Yeah, I never hit on someone when their pet dies. That can
Yeah,
be
no.
hard.
I'm a bad person.
It does remind me of this quote. I think it was Oscar Wilde who said, "Anyone who does not laugh at the death of Little Nell in the Old Curiosity Shop from Dickens has no soul," because maybe he thought it was so over the top. Here, I don't know if people. I don't know. In the theater that I was in, I don't think people were sobbing. I think they might have felt a little sad, and I mean, it's sad to see animals tortured, or see
Is it
animals
though?
cut
Is it-
off.
But see, this is the whole thing is that you reach a point of emotional manipulation because you have no ideas. And so it's like, hey, let's hurt little cute adorable animals. You know what I mean? It's like it's the lack of drama that gets brought to the surface because you have no way to sort of execute any ideas.
It's manipulative because you didn't actually invest any time on telling a story that audiences can be invested in. It's just like, oh, animals being tortured. Isn't that bad?
Well, it is. And look, I mean, you even get to see them in, I presume, some form of animal heaven, where where Rocket is like hovering between life and death, and he gets to be reunited with them. And oh, can I join you? Yes, but not now. You have to go back.
By the way, just a quick little off topic a note here. Rob, didn't watching the movie class of 1984 with the let me describe this perfectly here. The cat hanging punk Nazis, didn't that soften you up for animal abuse before you watch this movie?
Yes. No, I don't know.
Yeah, Rick, I'm not even sure if you were there that night, but you missed a good
No,
one. So
no,
yeah,
no, because you always schedule it when there's a baseball game.
yeah, like Saturday nights. By the way, if you want to rewatch that entire show, it's up on Rumble right now too. So here's another thing. Before we get to kind of the ending kind of nitpicky stuff, I felt like while this focus towards like the animal characters, there really wasn't enough towards like the human characters, because I think that the two best characters in this film were Star-Lord, and I also like Nebula. Now I know if you guys haven't really followed Nebula's, I guess, her journey from like the first film from the last one, she's had the most character development arguably from anyone in the MCU. She started off as like a straight up villain who was kind of like a goon of Thanos. You find out that she was basically kidnapped and tortured at a young age, and she always had like a complex with like Gamora, and then she slowly like changed her heart and changed her gear to become like an actual hero and one of the strongest members of the group, at least emotionally wise. And I felt like, man, maybe if we had built a plot that was more focused towards her and not the CGI raccoon, it could have gotten a little bit more of the emotion, especially since a lot of the heavy work is already done in previous movies beforehand. Isn't that kind of what the MCU is supposed to be doing anyway? So did you feel like that she didn't, I guess you should say what you feel about Nebula as a character, or Cara Gillian in the film?
Yeah, I actually thought it. So I have an interesting, not connection, but there was this movie called Oculus, which came out in 2013 that had Karen
Yeah.
Gillian in it. And I didn't realize it until a couple years ago that she was, what was it, Nebula?
Nebula, yeah.
Yeah, because she's covered in makeup. She doesn't have red hair. None of the markers, stand out. Again, I have no connection to her character, but I mean, I just remember that stupid comic bit with Star-Lord about her eyes being, what was he saying? They were beautiful.
Yeah.
She's like, they were ripped out of my head and I was tortured. Like, that's the reason.
Yeah, but he
why
picked a great pair.
They're black because my father tortured me and I lost them, but he picked a nice color.
Yeah.
Uh, well, actually, I think she's probably the one of the best characters because she's probably the most sensible. She's not someone who is as dim as Drax or Warlock. Not doesn't she doesn't pull at your heartstrings like a Rocket, and she's not like kind of semi cutesy like Groot. So she's probably the one that seems to be the most grounded, the most sane, and yeah, she's very much businesslike, but at least she's like she's taking the situations as seriously as anyone is in this, and she can get irritated like when she's kept out of the mad scientist's not so secret lair in Ultra, opposite Earth or Bizarro World or whatever it is. So yeah, she's probably the best character here. She's actually she's has a functioning brain. None of the other characters, Mantis. I mean that you know what? Again, that whole
Mantis
section,
is a functioning retard. Drax is a functioning retard. It's
Star Lord is not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed either.
Mm-hmm.
I would that whole part where they're like, oh, let's stuff our uniforms here, and then she sees them floating off in the background in that pointless Nathan Fillion cameo when he's dressed like the Michelin Man. Uh, notice this is the kind of, I don't want to say nadir of the story, but I noticed that whole section was so unimportant that their uniforms went off because they managed to escape. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even remember how they managed to escape and land in alternate Earth. I think I might have dozed off somewhere and just
I wish I
trying.
dozed off somewhere.
Yeah, I was trying, like, how did they get to this world where you have people with goat heads and panda heads and but they still drive cars and they still sell drugs and commit violent acts. I was, why are we here with this Bond villain who's kind of crazy? I don't care what other people are
How
saying
did you
about
guys
his
feel about the
performance.
villain here, just real quick? Because for me, it's
Yeah.
like, such as we just watched Ant Man a couple of months ago, like he felt like Kang 2.0. Was I the only person that felt that too?
Well, he
I
was. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just
Oh,
gonna say
okay.
I didn't see the Ant Man 3, so I can't compare Kang. But yeah, it did feel like this guy is just yelling at a blue screen or green screen that's supposed to be Rocket for half the movie.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I guess he could be kind of Kang, but with a very theatrical manner. Always just seemed to be constantly screaming at the end. And for me, again, he seemed like a very crazy Bond villain, like some of the worst Bond villains, who are just convinced that they're going to take over the world or do something so outlandish. And I know that a lot of critics are saying, "Oh, he's a top tier MCU villain." I'm going, why? Why? All he did was kind of,
Based according to who?
oh, well,
But they
well,
haven't they
Oh,
haven't introduced Galactus, Doctor Doom, Mister Sinister, I mean, they did Apocalypse. It was terrible. Sorry, but there's an
no,
amazing.
technically that was Fox. That wasn't the
True,
MCU.
true. But there's so many great Marvel villains in the comic books that they haven't even tapped into,
Mm-hmm.
and
well,
it's like they don't want to.
I think this was the that review where they talk about how PETA really liked this movie because it shows the evils of animal experimentation. I don't want to say. I think it might have been discussing film. I don't know if that was them. I might be wrong,
It was
but
them.
It was
I'm thinking, really top tier villain? I don't see how. It was very theatrical and so over the top. I cut them some slack because maybe the actor here just wanted to be kind of wild and outrageous and so over the top. You have to be when you're a mad scientist. That's basically what you've got here. This is
Dude,
a mad
all
scientist.
of these shill sites on social media, they try so hard to make it seem like that these MCU films are just an amazing success. Like all weekend long, it was like, oh, well, Guardians of the Galaxy smashed expectations. No, it didn't. The projection was 130. It ended at 115. That's below expectations.
Well,
Like, so I
no,
try to make it seem like this movie was like this glowing success because
it,
then in a month from now, they're going to have to report, well, yeah, it looks like Guardians of the Galaxy lost $100 million. I thought, oh, how did that happen? Because I heard it was an absolute success.
But
How?
the thing is that they're really trying to push this idea that it's that Guardians is one of the best Marvel films, and I'm thinking, how? I almost feel like I'm going against the grain because so many people are adamant that this is a great film. You know, the MCU is back after a couple of stumbles. I'm thinking, I don't see it. I
I
don't
think this
see
is a
it.
lot of James Gunn's fans are trying to defend James Gunn because if they have to admit that this film is bad, then how can you get excited for anything that Warner Brothers is going to do for the next 5 years?
I'm not excited over anything that they're doing over the next 5 years. And yes, you see, that's something that we haven't talked about.
Hmm.
That element, or maybe we mentioned it, that Mantis is Star Lord's sister.
Yeah.
It's kind of in a throwaway line
Yep.
early on in the film,
Yep.
and it's almost like if you don't hear it or you miss it, you wouldn't get the connection. You put this in the holiday special, but how are people going to know? It should not have been introduced in the holiday special, and it's so unimportant to the film as a whole. Unless they're trying to say, well, you don't need to see your 95-year-old grandfather who you haven't seen in, like, since you were 7, and you're like in your late 30s now, like 30 years. No, I mean, you've got me. I'm your long lost sister that you never heard of and didn't know, and that element was never introduced in volume 2 when you met your biological father. mean, how is anyone who has not seen the holiday? I was about to say the Star Wars holiday special, but how's anyone who's not seen the holiday special going to know any of this? And it's
That's why
patient.
you have to watch. You have to consume all the Disney content.
But that's the thing. I don't want to consume all the Disney content.
Basically, what they've done is that they've given you a homework assignment before you watch a movie.
I shouldn't have to. But it's such a throwaway line. Like, oh, you do. You have a sister. It's like, I'm using
Like I
like,
said, if the focus of the film was more on Star Lord than it was Raccoon, maybe you could have played more into the fact that hey, they just found out their brother and sister too, and he's going through a rough time, so maybe she can help him try to get over his grief and stuff like that. But like I said, he's not the main character of the film.
no, no. She's too busy getting everyone to believe that they're in love with Drax. That's
Yeah, man,
supposed to be the height of
get out
comedy.
of here.
Like, well, not hypnotizing them, but manipulating them into flirting with Drax and being like, "Oh, Drax, you're here. It's wonderful." Why do we need that? It's just,
This
Okay.
movie series, this movie franchise is literally me sitting with a black and white screen with Hello Darkness, My Old Friend playing,
Yeah.
because that's how little there is for me to latch onto here. It's just like, I, 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 I literally am without words because there's so little to comment on here. I felt the same about other like MCU stuff, but I honestly expected more from James Gunn, and especially how much of a fan following he has. And it's like, oh, okay, you needed to kind of like get this done and get this one in the can because you're
uh,
already over at DC.
but Rob, like I told you, the feels. Did you feel the move when Lila or Lilo was hugging Rocket one last time and telling him, "You don't have to come to our version of heaven. You have to go back and you have to fight evil or whatever." Didn't you just feel it? I mean, weren't you in tears? I mean, that's what this whole was about, right?
Yeah, I think the feeling was generally vomit. That was the that was the that was the feeling it inspired. But
Speaking of emotional manipulation, we have to talk about this because going into this film, the talk was, "Hey, this is the last time the Guardians are going to be together, so don't be surprised if somebody dies." They literally teased
Ha!
the death of every single character in this movie at some point in the film, and nobody died.
Ha!
Every single character got, oh my god, is this it? He's really dead. Nope, he's fine. He's fine. Like they did that with every single person in it, to the point where it was like when they finally made it seem like they were going to do it with Star Lord at the very end. I was like, oh wow, he actually pulled the trigger on one. Nope, immediately took that away.
Well, you had to give Warlock something to do. I mean, he had to serve some kind of purpose. I thought they were going for that as he's turning into like the Elephant Man.
Yeah,
I thought, oh wow, they're actually going. They're this is it. We're not going to see Chris Pratt anymore. This is going to be his farewell, and it's going to be a kind of a noble thing. It's a dumb thing because he basically died for his iPod, but or Walkman or whatever it was that he was trying to grab onto.
yeah.
I thought if he had,
His Zune,
yeah,
his
yeah, well,
Microsoft Zune.
he's gonna die to keep the Shazam app. I thought this was gonna be a noble end. He's gonna sacrifice himself for the kids. And what is it with the MCU and holding children hostage? Because we did that with Thor, the last Thor movie, where there were a bunch of kids being held hostage, all the whatever New Asgard, and
Look,
now this one with the children that look like extras from Thunderdome. We, what what is it with them and their fixation of holding kids hostage? I'm just wondering. But if he
look,
had died
yo,
with that way, with saving the kids, yeah, that would have been a great ending. No, no, no. Here comes Warlock having to save him and take him there and have him breathe in space because he could still breathe in space and Groot's.
now, look, to be fair, that part was teased, I believe, like the first Guardians movie, the first or the second one they did that. So, I mean, it's not surprising that survived. But like I said,
I
the
don't
fact that they
remember
have to
that.
tease the death of everyone just to take it away. And then here's the other thing. So, there is like a scene here towards the end where all of a sudden like I said, we're talking about Raccoon and his backstory, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, here's the child trafficking arc that we have to that just came out of nowhere that we now have to deal with in the film. And look, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory here, but when they got to that part of the movie, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want James Gunn to be the person to tackle a child trafficking storyline in this film. This may be a little too on the nose, given everything that we know about him over the last few years. So I
Well,
don't know that one kind of something like it's kind of like I don't know about that
all
one.
that really all that was running through my head was Tina Turner's "We Don't Need Another Hero," because that's all I kept thinking of. I mean, I thought, were these kids from like Thunderdome with what was it saying, jib 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 jub jib jab jab jib jib? That's it. That's all they could communicate. It was just, why were they there? I know they were there to kind of pull on our heartstrings. Oh, we need to save the children, but I was like, when is this thing going to end? I was asking myself, when is this going to end?
I
I want
just
this movie to end.
Yeah, I kept thinking of, so if you guys are familiar with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
so the character Dennis, he frequently loses it in like an egotistical rage, but when
Mhm.
he screams like I am a golden god, that's literally what I thought of. So I don't know. These what is it, like these golden dipped children running around? I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Well,
I don't know.
no, that golden god was Warlock, because that's,
Right.
he
There you
looked
go.
like that, and I don't remember. Did his mother disintegrate or die, or what
Yeah, she
happened?
got blown up at one point.
Oh, okay.
So
You see how much I
yeah, blinked and
remember.
you would have missed it.
Yes, it's like, oh, oh dear.
Yeah, she got blown up when the planet got blown up. So yeah, she
Oh,
she was a very useful character to bring back. As somebody else who honestly could have not been in this movie at all, it would have had no bearing whatsoever. So
well, look, that whole thing again. I go back to Nathan Fillion. What was his point? What was the point of of him being in there? That whole sequence again could have been cut, and we would have had a shorter film and probably a stronger, tighter film.
So Rick, he if you ever see Slither, he's actually the main character in that. So I think him
Oh,
and James Gunn have worked together before.
oh well. Oh yes, that's a reason to put someone in a movie, because they work together.
I'm just saying that, like, just that's the only I mean, because I agree with you. I thought his character was fairly useless, and it's just like, oh hey, a familiar face
And
here to kill some screen time.
yeah, and it's more for pointless comedy, because his real the whole gist of him is, oh yeah, I've got a stupid person here too, and I have to deal with this stupid person. And I think he says that thing twice. And I don't know if you should be doing that when you cast your brother in a movie, and he's not exactly the most well received character.
well, like I said, he's James Gunn's not the brightest one upstairs. But last thing, and we have to talk about this: the music. Now, it's been a staple of this entire Guardians of the Galaxy franchise that they have to have a whole bunch of cutesy old school pop songs from the 60s and the 70s. They did that with the first film. Worked fine with the first film because, hey, it was original. It was something different. So it totally worked for the first movie. They tried it again in the second movie outside of like the opening sequence, which I think was Mr. Blue Sky. Like all the music in that one fell flat. This one, like I know they tried multiple times to get like the musical sequences in. I don't think any of the music in this film hit with me at all. I think they used up all their bullets in the first film. But then we need to talk about this obsession with the Beastie Boys because this is not the first time that the Beastie Boys has been used in MCU related content, especially in Hollywood in general. It's like that we were saying before, literally like what 4 weeks ago, that the only two songs that they seem to use is "Sabotage" and "No Sleep Till Brooklyn." They literally used it in what was it, the Mario movie we just watched a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
And now here we're using it again. Was it No Sleep Till Brooklyn with the whole ending fight sequence, which was supposed to be, oh my god, this is so cool moment. I'm like, guys, can we stop? There's more. If you're gonna use hip hop songs, there's more songs out there than the freaking Beastie Boys. And even like Captain Marvel is using Intergalactic in their trailer. It's like, God, can we stop being such hacks? Can we just stop?
I swear, when they started playing "No Sleep Till Brooklyn," I literally said out loud, "Oh no, not again!" Because and Gabe was confused. I don't think he's seen Super Mario Brothers, but I had to tell him, "Look, I heard this song already. Why
Yeah.
am I hearing it again?" And then, yes, before the movie started, we got to see Intergalactic used in the Marvels trailer. I mean, really? I mean, why don't you play like "What You Want"? I mean, that's a Beastie Boys song that I know. Are they the only? Are they the only hip hop
Look,
group that you think you know?
here's a list of songs you can play. You can play "Open Letter to New York City," "Body Moving," "Make Some Noise," "Shake Your Rump," "She's Crafty," "What You Want," "Sure Shot," "The New Style." I mean, there's more than one Beastie Boys song you could pick from for the 30 years they were around.
I would even pick, "You Got to Fight for Your Right to Party,"
Right.
which was an unofficial anthem during the Summer of Love when they locked us all in to our homes, and if you went outside, the police would arrest you. So, and you literally had to fight for your right to party because you couldn't go in the bars, you couldn't hold private events. I, I just don't understand. And really, I don't know any of the songs. Like, remember the first one, "Creep"? I could barely remember, and I was thinking, is this a cover? Who is covering it? Because that doesn't sound like Radiohead.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I don't know. I don't think I remember any of the songs. And as for Volume Two, I don't know how you could misuse the chain from Fleetwood Mac in such a bad way. If they had at least played another Fleetwood Mac song, I might have liked it because I love Stevie Nicks. She's a goddess. But really, why at that point when they started playing "No Sleep Till Brooklyn," I was like, why this particular song? I don't understand the line. I mean, did they watch the Super Mario Brothers movie and say, "Oh, you know what? We need to include it here so that we could also make
Like
$1 billion"?
I said, the go to, if you're going to play a Beastie Boys song, the go to song to use is Intergalactic. This is a movie that happens in space. It's the perfect time to play it. But I guess they figured, oh yeah, we just used that song with the Miss Marvel trailer, so we can't use it twice. So okay, we'll just go back to "No Sleep Till Brooklyn" because
But
that makes
why?
sense.
No, I mean they're not. I mean, at least with Super Mario Brothers, they are going to Brooklyn, so it made sense. Here, it doesn't make any sense any more than when they played the chain as Star Lord turned into Pac-Man to fight Ego. I was really puzzled. I said, "Why is he turning into Pac-Man? Why are they playing this particular song?" It just, I
Here's
just,
here's what's really embarrassing is that one of the most expensive things, especially when you're not using CGI, when you're just making a regular movie, one of the most expensive things is music rights. Is getting music rights. Marvel can afford to get any music they want. Literally any music they want. And they settle for the same tired fucking overused singles from the Beastie Boys, a group that unless you're 35 and older for the most
Yeah.
part, you don't even know who they are.
I
So
mean, the last relevant Beastie Boys album was probably what, 2004.
so my question would be, who is this for? Because as we've all talked about, there are no parents going to this. The adults that go to this don't have kids. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But seriously, it's like
Kind of not, but
no, I don't think you are.
is it for older audiences? Is it for Gen Xers and Boomers who are in the audience? I don't know, but
It's not for
it,
me.
what's again, this is another embarrassing point for Marvel in terms of production. They could afford any music. They could be so creative with a track list or making it even part of the story. But that would take effort, that would take insight, that would take time,
Would
and they're not interested apparently.
Well, would this be something that Peter Quill would have heard as a 7-year-old? I don't know, because I mean I could barely. I don't think 7-year-olds were really that much into Fleetwood Mac in when he was abducted, which is why I
yeah.
was still puzzled by having the chain play. I could understand what was that "Come and Get Your Love," maybe, because you have to remember this is his soundtrack would be like what, late 70s, early 80s. So I'm perplexed, and it's more like pop, not rap or hip hop. It
Right.
just seems strange. I mean, they might as well have just played, like
Well,
Public
that's the
Enemy.
other thing. It's like, towards the end, like when Raccoon picks up his Zune, and then he has like all the songs on there. Apparently, he has songs all the way up to like the 2000s.
I saw that,
So,
but I don't know how he managed to do that. Uh,
mhm.
It
it's just
doesn't matter. There's multiple universes. The rules are irrelevant because they've made them irrelevant. Okay. Look, the last scene, the what is it? When the
the Happy
dog the
Dance.
dog the dog days are over, that song or whatever, that
Yeah.
I don't even remember when that came out, if it was like 2008, like Obama years. But I was in high school. Like I was 17, 18, 19 maybe. So again, I just, their choices are really bizarre, but just like that the slow beat that sort of rises and everybody starts dancing and it's like, okay, we all saw Return of the Jedi. We get it. We get it. If the evil's defeated and we can all go home and these fucking people can
And
fuck off because
they
Guardians of the Galaxy is done, I guess. But
yeah, yeah. So yeah, yes, that's a good point. I just don't understand why we need. I mean, we needed that big dance number at the end. I guess.
Because it's the end, Rob. It's the end of the Guardians. We have to go out on a happy note because it's the final Guardians movie until they decide to make another, which they're not going to make another one. I know the
I
whole
know.
end credit scene is, hey, we got a new Guardians of the Galaxy. They're not going to make a movie with those clowns. They're
Hey,
not.
hey, wait a minute. Star Lord will return. We got that. Remember at the very end. And yes, it does end
Is he
with, I guess,
though?
a new.
Is he?
Well, I know Gabe was saying, are they gonna do a Disney Plus show with him? He was a little perplexed. I had no idea. And yes, you do need a new Guardians. You need a new group of Guardians, I guess, to try to introduce Warlock and Rocket. Rocket's now the leader, and you got Warlock and Groot, who finally says something other than "I am Groot." Maybe that was a big turning point. But again, the movie just seemed to have an ending and then keep going, have an ending and then keep going, have an ending. I was like, when are you going to actually end? I want this movie to end. Please stop. I don't want any more. I don't want any more.
Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up with our final thoughts here. I've said it many times before. The overwhelming majority of MCU films are just films that are perfectly in the middle, not good enough to be great, not bad enough to be terrible. This is a perfectly average MCU film. If you're just a popcorn moviegoer who just wants to sit in the theater for 2.5 hours, you'll probably enjoy this. You won't overthink it or find nothing to bitch about here. If you know anything more about kind of the comic book lore of what this whole MCU thing has become, you'll probably find a lot more to nitpick. You'll probably like it a lot less. It's nowhere near as good as the first one, shocker, but it's not nearly as bad as the second one, in my opinion. So I would give this like a 2.5 out of 5. Like this is just something that's just so like out of sight, out of mind. Like it's not even like worthy of a glowing rendition or a glowing condemnation at this point. It's just perfectly in the middle. Yeah, great send off to the Guardians, but too many characters and runtime's too long. The characters are stupid. And there's only like two characters in this whole thing I even like at this point, which is Nebula and Star Lord. So there you go. What you got, Rob?
yeah, I'm somebody that I try to be fair when I'm giving out, scores, grades, whatever. But I also try to give my perspective. I think when someone like James Gunn, brings a movie to the table, especially a franchise that he built and created and helmed and was a part of, for him to sort of just shit the bed like this is kind of a slap in the face to fans. Even if most of the fans ate it up and aren't going to criticize it or critique it, you know what? I'll speak for the judgment they should have. Okay, I'm giving go ahead and give this a 1.5 out of 5. Maybe it is better than Thor 4 or Black Panther 2.
It's a very high bar.
It's about in the same ballpark for me. It was all these movies have characters I don't care about. There's no investment. They're children's characters. They're children's stories, and that's okay. That's fine. But they're not well done children's stories. I watched Darkman, which again is not for kids, and The Rocketeer, which you could show kids. I mean, both of those movies have so much more to them in production design and vision and execution at the filmmaking level than this movie ever even attempts to try. So yeah, I gave it a 1.5 out of 5. I feel bad for fans out there. I just wish they were smarter so they could kind of reject it.
Well, I'll say that this certainly is not in Rocketeer's league. I think that one is a throwback, and it's an enjoyable throwback, and it's a self-aware throwback to like these kind of serial films, and it was done with a great spirit, great score, and I know a shout out to a conservative film buff. This is one of his favorites.
Yep.
For me, Garbage of the Galaxy 3 was, yeah, I kept calling it that. The first time by accident, now it's intentional. It's better than the second one. I absolutely hated Volume 2. I hated it with an absolute burning passion. This one's slightly better, but not by much. It's pretty disposable. I barely remember much of it. I don't see why we needed so much of it. It's too long. There's so much that could have been cut that was unnecessary. Yeah, and it was just a little self-indulgent, but it wasn't horrible. I agree with Jacob. Certainly, Nebula's the best character. I was not invested in Rocket's return to life. I did not feel that, and I know a lot of people are praising Chris Pratt for his performance. I was not that overwhelmed with it, but then I'm not convinced that he's like an actual actor. He's a great action star. I give him that, but I'm not convinced. Like, oh wow, you're a great thespian there. I can't wait to see you do Macbeth anytime soon.
I say with Chris Pratt, I feel like he is basically where The Rock was maybe about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I know there's been some kind of debate as to whether he can open a film or not. I think he's capable of it, but not quite there yet. All I'll say is that I'm gonna be in Jacob's area 2.5. It's not. It's certainly better than some of the other Marvel movies that we've seen this year, which I barely even remember.
You mean
But
the only one being Ant Man? Yeah, I mean this is, for
yeah,
me, it's better than Ant Man. I mean that's
Ant
not a
Man
high
is
bar either,
yeah,
though.
it's
Yeah.
better than Ant Man. It's better than Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't. But then again, we've got the Marvels coming up, so maybe that'll be
Yes, three
better.
women nobody wants to see. We're literally tripling down on bad ideas.
No, no, no. I'm sure people will forget all about Dune Part Two and watch the Marvels. All I can say is that I don't believe that this is the Citizen Kane of the MCU, no matter how many people want me to think that. So it's a 2.5. It's serviceable if you just want 2.5 hours of your life just watching mindlessly and not even think about anything. Just watch just watch all these people interact with each other. That's yeah, 2.5. It's not great, but it's not horrible. So there's that.
Well, there you go. We reviewed the whole movie, and it only took about an hour and 10 minutes. So there you go. So, maybe someone can use that as the blueprint. Just throwing it out there. So next
So we
week,
can analyze it.
I think we're gonna do 3 movies to review next week. Rob, you said you wanted to watch the Fool's Paradise, which is the Charlie Day movie, so I'll give you that one. I'll take the Ben Affleck movie, Hypnotic, and because Rick decided to make another Citizen Kane joke, I'm gonna make him watch Book Club, the next chapter. So there you go.
That's rough.
Look, I suffered through 80 through Brady. Now you want me to watch another Jane Fonda in a group of old women movie?
Yep.
Wait
What
a
have
minute.
I-
Is this the
what have
one where
I-
Jane Fonda literally says, "Let me see your concealed weapon" to a male police officer
Yes.
in the trailer? Okay, yeah, I'm
Yes.
so sorry for you. I'm so
Look,
sorry.
all I could ask Jacob is what have I done to deserve this?
Well, listen,
You see,
I
they could
I was
put that
excited.
in there.
I was excited to see the movie. Jacob's going to see Hypnotic. So it's directed by Robert Rodriguez and it stars Ben Affleck, who's I think he's trying to figure out like this series of heists that's going on, and it has
Yeah.
some supernatural element. And I'm like, oh, you just ruined my interest. Okay, so we'll see.
Well, yeah, I might see it. Depends on how my schedule falls. I mean, I might see those others. Hypnotic. I didn't see Fool's Paradise playing here in El Paso, but I might not see it in El Paso, but I'll still see it legally. Just throwing that out there, Roberto.
Yeah, I didn't see
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 legally, so there you go. Fuck you, James Gunn. Fuck you, Disney.
I didn't hear that. I did not hear that.
Well, I'll go ahead and give you guys a chance to promote what you guys coming up for. I'll let you know what we got coming up later on this week. I'll start with you, Rick.
Oh well, yeah, just more reviews and yeah, still plugging the GoFundMe. So see if I could try to get people to help me out, and they have. I'm thankful for the. Good grief! I thought I put that on mute. They have been very helpful to help fund my money. Although I saw my Democratic Socialist friend, and she told me that I make more than she does, so she's not going to help me out, which is not very democratic socialist of her.
Well, I mean, she
Uh,
is a communist, so it wouldn't be a shock she's poor.
well, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And let me see if I can. Oh, where are you? See if I can.
Yeah, if you
There we
want the
go.
link to the GoFundMe, you gotta send it to me because I can't find it on your thing.
Yeah. I have it. Sorry about that. I'm usually behind Rob, so I'm not used to taking the first place here. All
Well,
right.
while he figures that out, let's go to the guy who has nothing to promote, Mr. Rob Motto.
Yeah, so I try to sum up pretty quickly because if I don't, Jacob cuts you off. So that's I've learned
I've
to
never
get
done
my
that.
message out. No, not to me because I sum up
Not
pretty
yet.
quickly. Right. So yeah, watched my first James Bond movie over the weekend. Doctor No wasn't in particularly impressed. I enjoyed a lot of movies over the weekend though. They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen. And it's incredibly depressing, so that's always a good combination. And then just some Burt Lancaster movies over the weekend, including The Young Savages, Separate Tables, and Elmer Gantry. So I recommend all of those. I'm going to continue my James Bond series here probably this week, but I'm a little busy with job searching and trying to keep a roof over my head. So just pay attention to my Twitter. It's at the bottom of the screen.
Best of luck to you, Jacob. I mean, Rob.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rob doesn't need any luck. All right. So letting you guys know, we got some big announcements coming up this week. So tomorrow, Barroom Podcast number 47. We're going to talk about Kevin Costner leaving Yellowstone after 5 seasons. Blade is an absolute mess behind the scenes as far as production goes. We'll talk about that. Hollywood is doing a fundraiser to promote more drag queen content. Evangeline Lilly calls out Hollywood for his gender confusion agenda. And then Howard Stern has the audacity to complain about black players not acknowledging him during Knicks games. We'll talk about that tomorrow on the Barroom Podcast. Next week, which is next Tuesday night, Chris Gore is going to join us for a very special episode of the Barroom Podcast. We're going to talk about G4. We're going to talk about Attack of the Show and kind of like that whole era of kind of like the rise and fall of G4. So that's going to be a pretty cool episode next week on the show. So look forward to that. This Wednesday, I'm actually going to be on Shagsworth, his podcast. So I won't be on the Black Bill stream this week, but we'll be back with them next week. And then this Friday, we'll be back doing movie night. I believe we're watching. God, what was the movie that we decided on? I think it was called The Right Man. I want to make sure that I get that right and don't completely butcher that, but I do believe it's called Real Men. Excuse me, Real Men, which is the John Ritter and Jim Belushi movie. So we're gonna be watching that one on Friday night on Twitch and on Rumble as well. So follow us on YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble for all of the new stuff that we have coming out. And that's pretty much everything that we got here for the show. So thank you, Rob and Rick, for joining me to another movie tonight. Good luck with you, especially you, Rick, with your movie next week. You're gonna need it. But until then, we're gonna hop off here. We're gonna hit the outro. See you tomorrow night for the Barroom Podcast. So adios, people. Bye.